When a mother and daughter go missing on the Bastille Day holiday, the whole town comes together to search except for the head of the family. The Benitez family lived in Perpignan, in southwestern France. Francisco was originally from Spain, served as a chief warrant officer in the Foreign Legion, and was married to Mary Jose. They met in 1988 when Mary was working as a bartender in Marseille. Everything began splendidly, and in the person of Francisco, the woman found a reliable and stable support. They had 4 children, however, all of them from different relationships. Allison in this marriage was the 5th and common daughter of Francisco and Mary. The girl was outwardly attractive and studied to be a hairdresser. But in her dreams, she had a desire to participate in beauty contests and win the title of Miss France someday. The family moved to Perpignan in 2010, and since the family had previously changed several places of residence because of the work of the head of the family, it was difficult for Alice to make friends each time in a new place. For those who don't know, the Foreign Legion is the core of the French army, consisting of airborne troops, cavalry, engineers, and infantry. The soldiers are well trained, and uniquely, the Legion is open to French recruits who wish to serve in the French army. The Benitez family from the outside looked almost perfect. Allison was friends with her mom and trusted her very much. The girl was also on good terms with her father, who often attended rehearsals and castings of his daughter. Benitez himself was respected by friends and colleagues. According to reviews, he is an excellent legionnaire, as well as a good man with a sense of humor and a friendly attitude to others. In 2013, Allison had a dream to participate in a beauty contest. And with the support and approval of her parents, the girl decides to quit her job as a hairdresser to fully devote herself to training and participation in this competition. July 14, 2013, Allison is in Cannes, in a small beach town not far from her home. She is there practicing and participating in rehearsals. Toward evening, her father arrives to pick her up. They walk out together and Allison gets into the car. That was the last time anyone saw her that day. Benitez's wife, Mary, sends a strange text message to one of her daughters that same day and tells her that she is moving to Toulouse. This message said that Mary and Allison had decided to leave the family and move to Toulouse, even though Allison had a rehearsal with the other girls scheduled for the next day and no one knew that this meeting would be cancelled. Cindy Philippak, the head of the committee, was concerned when Allison didn't show up for subsequent rehearsals and asks a friend of the girl to stop by her house and clear up the situation. The friend managed to talk to Allison's father, who relayed that the daughter and her mom had gone to Toulouse. However, the head of the committee thought that there was something wrong here because Mary has 4 other children, and she could not just leave them and go away. Attempts to reach Allison were unsuccessful, and the girl, who had been posting on Facebook and Twitter since July 13th, was nowhere to be seen or heard from. Benitez himself didn't seem to be too concerned. He has connections in the police and military, but he's not trying to contact anyone to speed up the search for his daughter-wife. He had told friends that Allison had always wanted to work in Toulouse, but everyone knew the girl was obsessed with the competition and wouldn't even consider such a thing. It isn't until July 22nd, 8 days later, that Benitez finally goes to the police with his stepdaughter Lydia, who has received a text message from her mother, but he doesn't stay there more than 10 minutes, and the police don't seem too concerned, given the circumstances. Explaining that there was texting and the fact that the adults left, none of this suggests that anything happened to them. It wasn't until June 25th, when Benitez once again contacted the police, that the case became of interest. Francisco explained that he had a big fight with his wife on the 14th, and she allegedly left with their daughter around 5 p.m. This had happened before. After a quarrel, Mary would disappear for days, then reappear. Benitez didn't seem bothered by the disappearance of her daughter and wife. Even though they hadn't been contacted by phone for days, they hadn't appeared on social media, and there was no activity on their bank cards. And despite the lack of real evidence, investigators are beginning to suspect Benitez little by little, with his incredibly laid-back calm. They check security cameras, especially at the train station, since Mary couldn't drive and it was the only way to leave town. Friends and colleagues also began to think it was all for a reason and joined the search. They put up flyers and posters and even got the media involved in the alert. On July 30th, a television broadcast reported the disappearance of a mother and daughter 16 days earlier, Surprisingly, Mary Jose's family knew nothing about the missing, and hearing the news for the first time on television, Mary's brother Eric calls Benitez and asks what the hell is going on. Francisco Benitez told the same thing to the police about the quarrel and that his daughter and wife had gone to Toulouse, and justified his silence by his desire not to disturb his relatives without reason. On August 1st, 8 police officers and 2 local prosecutors searched the Benitez family home for more than 5 hours. In the house, in all rooms was in complete order. The police did not find a speck except for one room, the study, in which they found the passports of Mary and Allison, indicating that they could not have traveled far and long. Despite a thorough search, nothing else suspicious could be found. On August 3rd, Mary's brother Eric himself goes to Perpignan to talk to the police, and on August 4th goes to see Benitez, who is in bad shape, crying all the time and unwilling to talk to reporters, allegedly because he is suspected of something. Eric leaves his relative at 6 p.m., promising to meet tomorrow, but Benitez's evening did not end there. Late in the evening, he meets with a journalist and gives him the videotape, warning that it can be published after a certain date. And even later, at 11 p.m., Francisca's neighbor notices him leaving the house. The next early morning, a fellow legionnaire finds Francis Benitez hanged in the barracks restroom. He was dressed in a military uniform and had a black veil on his head. What could one think after what happened? What drove Benitez to do such a thing? Maybe he took his own life because he couldn't bear the pain of his wife and child's disappearance, or because of the storm of suspicion that descended on him. Or maybe the guilt of what he had done and the fear of being discovered drove the man to such an end, and he covered his face because of a sense of shame? Local prosecutors hold a press conference that day, stating that if Allison and Mary were currently alive and free to move around, they would surely be showing themselves now that they have learned what Benitez did. A video entrusted to a journalist is then published. In this video, Benitez looks like a man murdered and genuinely apostatized. He tries to justify himself and talks about his choices. Interestingly, there is no mention of his wife at all in the video. Why choose to walk away from life when you have a purpose in your life to find your wife and daughter? They also found a note in the barracks that justified his act. Benitez writes that he is at his limit and can no longer handle the pressure of endless criticism and suspicion. The man's act made it clear to his friends and colleagues that he was in no way involved in the disappearance of his wife and child. After press coverage of Benitez taking his own life on August 5th, a bystander saw the video of him and immediately called the police. The man said that he recognized his ex-wife Simone's ex-lover in the video. When Simone and Benitez met, she was divorced from her husband, also a legionnaire, and she met Benitez at a bar near the barracks where Simone worked as a waitress. In 2004, Simone and Benitez were dating, and they saw each other all the time, spending weekends together. Simone said that Benitez had separated from his wife Mary and she wanted him to meet her family. At the time, Simone had no idea that Benitez was living a double life, and it wasn't until she managed to intercept a call from Mary Jose that she realized the man had been cheating on her, and an argument ensued between the two of them and clarified their relationship over the phone. After a terrible scandal, Simone told her family that she had decided to leave Benitez, and then the woman disappears on November 29, 2004. On the day of her disappearance, Simone left her children with her brother Luis, who she told that she was going to go to meet Benitez and end their relationship. The woman has not been seen since. The similarities between the two stories are stunning. Benitez met the women while they were working in a bar. They already had several children each from previous relationships. Like Mary Jose, Simone also had no reason to abandon her children. Simone's last contact was a text message sent personally to Benitez, in which she wrote, "I'm done. I'm leaving you, it just doesn't make any sense." At the time, Benitez was being questioned as a witness, but wasn't pressed hard, and nothing much was really investigated. Simone was a party girl who slept around, so it was assumed that she met some guy and ran off with him, even though Simone's family directly accused Benitez, but their claims went unheeded. When the police start linking the two cases, the situation looks more than dire. The police, upset that the prime suspect has taken his own life, return to the Benitez home to look for additional evidence and discover that the man has not lived in the family home for the past 8 years. He and his wife had been in frequent arguments over his constant absences, but mostly over his many infidelities, and so Mary Hosea allegedly began divorce proceedings against Benitez. The beauty contest took place as planned to the port of Baccarat, near Perpignan. All 11 contestants wore green bracelets in memory of Allison and hoped the girl would show up and surprise everyone. But it's been a month since Allison was last seen. The police start digging into Benitez's life and begin interviewing some of his co-workers. One of the Legionnaires said that on July 19th, 5 days after his disappearance, Benitez asked him to help move a refrigerator from his house to the barracks, explaining that the refrigerator had pheasant's blood in it and it would be easier and better to clean it in the barracks. Thinking nothing of it, a co-worker helps move the fridge and watches with several other Legionnaires as Benitez washes and cleans it. The police send some forensic experts to check the barracks as well. They discover a refrigerator packed and tied with ropes. When they unpacked it, it was clean as new, except for a small area near the freezer fan where they find a few traces of blood. And it turns out it wasn't pheasant. It was Allison's blood. There was now very little doubt that Allison had been in the freezer for several hours, and it could definitely be said that she was dead. Next, investigators learned that Benitez had been cleaning his clothes in the barracks, and after examining the machine he was using, they also found out that it contained blood particles that belonged to Allison and Mary Jose. The investigators then returned to the house armed with equipment that can detect and recognize the slightest traces of blood. It was clear that the house had been thoroughly cleaned with some strong industrial bleach, but this time the investigators find blood in several rooms of the house. In a very short period of time, a double disappearance case had become a double murder investigation. Now any doubts have turned into certainties. It appeared that Benitez had killed his wife and daughter. The investigation further focused on trying to find the bodies. For example, the mileage on Benitez's car showed that he had driven over 5,000 kilometers in just 3 weeks. So where did he travel so far if the bodies were in his car? By tracing the man's phone, it was learned that he drove several times to the same place, 30 kilometers from his home, and he always did it late at night. On September 10, 2013, a team of specialists, including divers and a squad with dogs and bloodhounds, began the search. 70 qualified officers from neighboring towns also take part. The search leads police to a waste and source water treatment plant, the perfect place to dispose of a body, right? The searchers search the entire area and find absolutely nothing. The entire month of September is spent searching, but the police remain confident that they are on the right track. At the same time as the search for Allison Mary's body is going on, the police are looking into other unsolved cases and looking for a connection to Benitez, as he may be a serial killer. Investigators stumble across an old case that piques their interest. Sandra Martin, a 21-year-old married mother of 2, left the family home at 10 p.m. after an argument with her husband. She claimed she was going to spend the night in a hotel, but despite a thorough search, she has still not been found. 2 months later, a fisherman finds her body near her home, and an autopsy reveals that she drowned. Her husband, Patrice Martin, is the prime suspect. Police questioned him, but as it turned out from her husband's words, Sandra was depressed and was about to leave France. The investigation into the death lasted 8 years, but was never solved. However, the woman's relatives refused to believe in an accident or that she took her own life, and it also turns out that at the time of her disappearance in Perpignan, Benitez was involved with another woman, Maria Teresa, who lived in northern Spain. Benitez often went to the French consulate in Barcelona, and that's where he met Maria Teresa, a 39-year-old married Spanish woman with 2 children, and they began an affair. It also emerged that Francis had another woman in Paris and 2 at the Perpignan barracks. In the months leading up to July 14th, Benitez had been with several different women. Allison learns that her father is cheating on her mother with Maria Teresa. Allison's best friend Alexandra reveals that Allison confided in her about her father's extramarital affairs. Benitez spends July 12th in Barcelona with Maria Teresa and some of her friends, and even invites her to stay at his house on July 19th, 5 days after his wife and daughter disappeared. Police learn that Maria Teresa was the latest in a long line of Benitez's conquests. Benitez likely learned that Allison knew about his double life and promiscuous affairs. The daughter shared everything she knew with her mother. Then there was probably a scandal and Benitez lashed out at his daughter. There are doubts that he was going to kill Allison, as he loved his daughter, took good care of her, but just at the moment of the quarrel did not control his emotions, and it led to a tragic end. This was most likely the case with the other women who mysteriously disappeared. Having killed Allison, Benitez was then forced to kill his wife as well. In this situation, he could no longer control his emotions. To this day, the bodies of Allison and Mary Jose have not been found. Benitez was not an amateur, he was a soldier, a legionnaire, and thus was trained to kill. Thus he was also quite skilled at disposing of bodies. Also, if the police had known about these other women from the beginning of the investigation, perhaps then the police would have taken the disappearance of the mother and daughter more seriously. Thanks for watching. I recommend watching other true crime stories. Click right now and also subscribe to my channel. See you soon.